to start talking anyway. I'm really happy to be here. Hi. Hello. My arm might get tired, but I'm really happy to be here. And my name is Zenshin Greg Fain, and you can call me Greg. I think I should start the way I usually start when I give a Dharma talk, which is to thank and acknowledge my teacher, the old Buddha of the East Bay, Sojun Mel Weitzman Roshi. The late, great Sojun Mel Weitzman Roshi. And to say that this talk is just to encourage you in your practice. Yeah. I would like to thank my dear friend, Zen teacher, Reverend Shoren Heather E. Russo, for inviting me to give this talk. I would also like to thank Heather for reminding me that I said yes to giving this talk. Very good. This talk is going to be a little bit all over the place, so I apologize in advance. It could be, well, hey, I'm newly retired from San Francisco Zen Center, so congratulate me. Linda, my wife, Reverend Linda Gallion, and I, we're going to take it on the road. We're going to be unsui, clouds and water monks. Clouds and water. Yes, indeed. Going hither and thither, wherever the winds blow us, for a while. Yeah. So it's not a swan song. You know, I'm not saying goodbye. I'm not saying this is it. Because as we all know, the practice goes on forever. Mel used to say, as we all know, a lot. And the people would say, we don't all know that. My past summer was pretty eventful, to say the least. That's one way you could say it. And I'd like to talk a little bit about some things. But I'll start with something that was pretty cool that happened this past summer, which is I was so happy to be part of a reading group with my dear friend Ken Knabb, pillar of the temple at Berkeley Zen Center and a true polymath. He's the most lively intellect of any person I have the pleasure to know personally. So widely read. So he leads these reading groups, and we read Herodotus, the histories. It's pretty cool. And he was introducing me to the group because he thought it was kind of great that I'm from Tassajara. You know, mostly I've practiced at Tassajara Zen Mountain Center in my life of practice. And so he was talking about Tassajara a little bit because Ken practiced there in the 80s. And yeah, he knows so many different people and so many different origins in the group. This woman spoke up. She's from Quebec. That's all I recall. And she says, oh, that's very nice. What has that got to do with the climate crisis? And I thought about that. And I said, well, as I see it, our practice cultivates a felt sense of connection. We can understand intellectually that we're all connected. We can understand that our actions have impacts that are very wide-ranging and far beyond what we can know. We can understand that intellectually, but I believe that the practice gets that in your bones. It gets that in the body and the bones. And yeah, and she was like, oh, I see. I think it makes a difference, actually. I do think it makes a difference that you actually feel it. You feel this connection, like all the time. And that influences how you relate to things. It influences what you do in this world. Just, handling things with two hands. Taking care of whatever's in front of you, as my teacher always used to say. Just take good, very good care of whatever's in front of you. Cultivating that way of life. And I believe that Zazen is very, very good for that. Yeah, that's what I think. You're sitting a lot of Zazen, I think you begin to get that. You begin to get that in the body. Zen is body practice. Body, body, body. And that's what is cultivated. However, Zazen alone won't do it. No, I'm sorry to say. It is possible to become very adept. Well, as we all know, it is possible to become very adept at sitting quite still for hours on end and still make horrible decisions and hurt people. Be cruel even. I'm sorry, but I think that is so. A Dharma sibling of mine left San Francisco Zen Center many years ago. She said, well, I felt like I didn't have a place there because I felt like Zazen was the coin of the realm, what was valued. And she felt like she wasn't very good at Zazen. Just wasn't her main thing. And therefore, she would be passed over or not appreciated, not valued, because she wasn't good at Zazen, whatever that means. I am happy to say I do not believe that is the case. If it was the case then, I do not believe that that is the case now. Yeah. In San Francisco Zen Center, that is. Yeah. A change for the better. This sense of connection, Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing. Right? You may have heard that expression before. Great Vietnamese Zen teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, coined that word, interbeing. He would say, we inter-are. We exist together, interdependently. And it's also how I understand what we talk about when we talk about thusness or suchness, which is a kind of a strange concept, something that is difficult to talk about. I would say when you feel that connection in your body, thusness. Another really groovy thing that happened this summer was Reverend Linda and I were so happy to lead a Sangha week in Tassajara. where branching streams, sanghas, small sanghas from across the country come and practice together for a week in Tassajara. And we led a group from the Mid-City Zen Sangha in New Orleans, where we will be going next year. We'll be leading another practice period there next spring, our second practice period at Mid-City Zen in New Orleans next spring. And only one of the people had ever been to Tassajara before, and only one of them had ever chanted the Song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi by Dongshan Liangjie, alleged, our great ancestor, our great Soto Zen ancestor in China. And they really liked it. And so we had this really sweet ceremony where they invited me and Linda to lead the practice period next spring. And they said, let's study the Song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. And Linda and I were like, okay, we can do that. Should be pretty joyful. Yeah. And it's a lot. We love to teach together. Linda and I do. We have a lot of fun. And lately, when we've been teaching together, we've been doing more of what I would call practical Buddhism. We're really emphasizing the basic teachings, the paramitas. That was the last practice period we led in Mid-City Zen. We were teaching the paramitas and the Brahma Viharas and so forth. And Linda said, well, this could be fun, do something a little different, a little more esoteric, a little more far out. And I thought, yeah, it is. But actually, the teaching of thusness, that's how the Song of the Jewel Mirror starts out. The teaching of thusness has been intimately transmitted by Buddhas and ancestors. Now you have it, so keep it well. It's really a practical thing. It's really a necessary thing. How to approach it? Well, we're working on that. Yeah, we're going to have fun with it. So, I'm getting tired of this. Oh, it's backwards. This way? Hope I don't break it. I'm going to break it. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Thank you. So on this note, I wanted to talk a bit about a very important Dharma book. It was recently published. It's called Home is Here, Practicing Anti-Racism with the Engaged Eightfold Path, by my friend, Reverend Keiryu Liên Shutt. This is a really important book. It has helped me so much. There's a lot of things that have been sort of simmering in my consciousness for a couple of years now, which when I read this book were clarified, crystallized. I was like, yes, right on time for me. It might be right on time for you. It might be. I think so, actually. Very helpful. And she writes about these old school teachings from, the Pali Canon, That's the first language that Buddhism was written down in, is Pali. And Theravadan teachings, Theravadan actually means old school, more or less. That's not a bad translation for Theravadan. The old school teachings, the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, the Brahma Viharas, the precepts. I wasn't going to read it, but over here on page 148, she says, in Western convert settings, meditation is seen as the main aspect of Buddhist practice. However, in most of the Buddhist world, which is predominantly made up of Asian heritage practitioners, it actually begins and is grounded in the precepts. The precepts can be seen as essential core values. And when you have studied and are living in accordance with your values, then your heart and your mind are naturally more peaceful and at ease before you go to do the mental training of meditative practices. I feel that so strongly. You know? And as I sort of hinted at, I do believe that San Francisco Zen Center has more and more been heading in that direction, which is a really helpful thing. I'm going to hold up the book again. There's a lot of Dharma books out there, right? Which is a good thing, I feel. Go to the bookstore. There's so many. Really, go to the bookstore. And we got quite a few copies of this one. Highly, highly recommended. Lien brings up the image of Indra's net from the Avatamsaka Sutra. If you don't know about Indra's net, it's this sort of, Indra is this god, I guess I'd call him. His net is this sort of cosmological, what? In the cosmos, there's this net that is a net of jewels. And each jewel in the net perfectly reflects and transmits to every other jewel. You know, this is the teaching of the Avatamsaka Sutra, the mutually unhindered interpenetration of all space and time, which is as cosmic as it sounds. And Indra's net, you know, when you talk about it, think about it. Lien says, let's think less about the jewels. Well, that's each of us individually, maybe, huh? And more about the net. What connects us? What brings us together? You know, I think that in Western convert Buddhism, I get what she's saying. You know, I mean, I don't want to make broad sweeping statements, but I'm going to anyway. I feel like in Western culture, there's a lot of, you know, rugged individualism, personality, I, me, mine, and it's sort of, it's in there, like a lot, like pretty strongly, and it needs to be worked with. So I really, really, yeah, this less about the jewels, or as somebody once said to me in a practice discussion at Tassajara, she said, boy, we sure talk about ourselves a lot here, don't we? I had to agree. More about what connects us, what brings us together in community as one body of practice. The whole world as one body of practice. The Engaged Eightfold Path. Check it out. Check it out. I think you might be pretty amazed. She has drilled down into this. She has thoroughly absorbed and penetrated these teachings and then brought them to us in a fresh, creative way that reminds me of no less than Thich Nhat Hanh, actually. Thich Nhat Hanh also very creative, right? Bringing them to life and making them relevant and touching the human heart. Speaking of the human heart, Suzuki Roshi often, according to Mel, what I gather is that he talked a lot about sitting zazen with a warm-hearted feeling. You know? Bring a warm-hearted feeling to your practice. I think that's so important in the practice of zazen and in the rest of our practice. And Lien, in this book, she talks about metta practice a lot. Metta is a Pali word as well, and it means loving kindness. Here in San Francisco Zen Center, we chant the Metta Sutta. May all beings be happy. May they be joyous and live in safety. All living beings, whether weak or strong, in high or middle or low realms of existence, may all beings be happy. Extending this wish to everyone and living it. Above all, living it. And that's all I want to practice anymore. Actually, I still enjoy zazen. Don't get me wrong. But metta. That's what I want to practice these days. That's what I'm trying to practice these days. I engage in petitionary prayer. I say, "Oh, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, I, Ikfu Zenshin, Buddha's disciple, beseech and implore, please help me to be a kinder person. Help me to be a more loving person." That's all I care about these days. The world's a pretty grim place these days, I feel. If you were hoping for a world where you could watch a hospital being invaded in real time on your phone, congratulations, here it is. If you're hoping for a different world, maybe let's get to work on that. You all do know who Stevie Wonder is, right? Anybody here not know who Stevie Wonder is? Very cool. When I was a teenager, Stevie Wonder was what was happening for me and my friends. 1972, Talking Book. 1973, Inner Visions. 1974, for fulfilling this his first finale. Boom, boom, boom. He was on fire. Those last two I mentioned won the Grammy for Best Album back-to-back years. Yeah. Deservedly so. They're masterpieces. In 1975, Paul Simon won the Grammy for Best Album for his album, There Goes Ryman Simon. And he came on the stage and he said, "I would like to thank Stevie Wonder for not releasing an album this year." What was he doing? Was he resting? Did he run out of steam? Oh, heck no. No, 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 no. Stevie was working on his magnum opus, in my opinion, the greatest album ever recorded. I refer to Songs in the Key of Life, 1976. It's like, here's your Grammy, Stevie. Oh, here's another one, and here's another one. Yeah. Just amazing. I remember so well when that was released in 1976. I was living over on 51 Octavia Street, actually, right near here. Just amazing. Some people said like it was too much for some people. Anyway, the first track on that album. Anybody know? Anybody want to tell me? Do you know? All right. That's it, baby. Yes. That's it. Thank you. You win. Yep. And it was intentional to set the tone for the whole album. Love's in need of love today. Don't delay, send yours in right away. Hate's going round, breaking many hearts. Stop it, please, before it's gone too far. Really sweet, sort of mournful R&B ballad. And it meant a lot to Stevie. He said, see if I can remember this. I don't know if I can quote him word for word, but something like, thank you, Wikipedia. He said it was really important to him. And he came up with the title first, and then the rest of it just sort of followed. But what he said was, love by itself is hollow. It's not effective unless it is fed, unless it is nurtured. We have to bring love. In my opinion, this is our literal job as human beings. It has to be, we have to bring our bodies and minds and hearts to the fore and do it. You can't just say, oh, love. You know, love is everywhere. That's not enough. That's not enough. I understand that in the practice period that's going on right now, you are studying the Genjo Koan of Eihei Dogen Zenji. And I thought, oh, this is a lot like near the end of the Genjo Koan, Dogen says, Zen teacher Baoche of Mount Mayu was fanning himself. A monk approached and said, hey, teacher, the nature of wind is permanent. There's no place it doesn't reach. Why are you fanning yourself? Baoche just kept fanning himself. The monk bowed deeply. You have to bring some skin in the game, is what I'm saying. We have to love. We can't just say, yeah, love, it's great. I support that. I'm in favor of it. No, it's something we do. It's something we practice. metta practice is essential in Buddhism. Well, and I hope I made it clear, it's become very essential for me. That's just all I want to practice anymore. And I really thank Leanne for emphasizing that as well in her amazing, amazing book. Yikes. Okay. So I would like to take a few minutes. Speaking of love, I think I'm finally ready to eulogize my student, Curtis Fabens, a very loving man, a gentleman and a gentle man, one of the best. Another thing that happened this past summer, in the last week of July, was I gave Dharma transmission to Curtis. I ordained him in 2013 at Tassajara with Abbot Steve Stuckey on one side of me and Sojin Mel Weissman on the other side of me. Oh my. And it's just the most amazing, joyful thing you can do is to give or receive Dharma transmission. Just an incredible thing. Yeah, the most joyful thing. Well, anyway. 2 weeks later, he passed away. Curtis had a very rare condition called, I'm probably mispronouncing it, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which affects the body's ability to produce collagen, which is how he was able to sit full lotus like no problem, just because he was hyper flexible. I don't see Eli here this morning, but recently Curtis did a practice period here, so I think some of you know him. And I understand that Curtis was routinely dislocating his shoulder, and Eli would just pop it back into place. And he wore these splints on his hands, just to keep his hands in the right position. Anyway, another thing that it affects is the integrity of major arteries in the body. And if one of those ruptures, that's it. That's what happened in his sleep. Curtis loved formal practice so much. Something we had in common was just geeking out on Zen. Loved it. And we studied and practiced together for Dharma transmission for a couple of years. And I was really moved by the depth of his practice. And preparing for the actual ceremony with my dear friend and mentor, the abbot of Berkeley Zen Center, Hozan Alan Sanaki, finding a way for Curtis, because it's really became so evident how much ableism is baked into the forms and ceremonies of Soto Zen, along with the patriarchy and hierarchy. Yeah. But we changed it, because everything changes. Everything changes. That's Buddhism. If you say San Francisco Zen Center is like this, too late, it changed. Everything's changing. And that's a good thing. Especially when you are feeling a little down about how things are. Mahatma Gandhi, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. Bring it. Get skin in the game. Be love. Yeah. I miss him so much. I drove down the coast to visit with his widow. Linda and I are taking transition time here at City Center, which is almost over. Monday, we're going to hit the road. And I thank you. Thank you for this time here. So I think we've taken very good advantage of it. I was really happy to be able to go and visit with Caitlin and their lovely daughter, Layla, who is 7 years old, has type 1 diabetes and leukemia. Such a great kid. And Caitlin, now she's a single mom with a lot to do. So I actually taped a screenshot of a GoFundMe page for Caitlin over there in the lobby. And I think also paste that into the chat on the Zoom. And you can also find it in San Francisco Zen Center's memorial pages. There's a memorial to Curtis on the website with a link to that GoFundMe page. I'd appreciate you taking a look at that, if you wouldn't mind. Well, this talk is to encourage you in your practice, right? I want to share something Suzuki Roshi said in this very Dharma hall, Buddha hall, a long time ago. All-time favorite Suzuki Roshi quote. But after you attain complete liberation from this world, without escaping from it, you will have all the money there is. So there is no problem. If every one of us, oh no, 1 out of 10 people have this kind of freedom, we will have no war, no social problems. We will all be happy. With this kind of understanding of practice, we practice Zazen. Practice Zazen with a warm heart. Practice Zazen with a loving heart, with a heart of metta. You know, I love the way he says, oh, just 1 out of 10. Just 1 out of 10. Yeah. He believed that, you know, it's possible. We can do this. Humanity can do this. In the Mahayana, which is the beginnings of Zen Buddhism, comes from Mahayana Buddhism, they don't use the Pali language so much, they use Sanskrit. And the Sanskrit word for metta is Maitri. And Maitreya Buddha, the future Buddha, his name, Maitreya, means the loving one. And what if Maitreya Buddha is just 1 out of 10? The teaching of love has been intimately transmitted by Buddhas and ancestors. don't delay. Send yours in right away. Because love's in need of love today. I really didn't mean to talk that long. I'm sorry. I meant to leave time for questions. So I don't know if we chant now or after the questions, Kay.
We chant at the end, and we do have a good 17 minutes for questions.
Okay, 17 minutes. Go. Oh, yeah, the mic.
Apologies, we only have one microphone today, so I'll be running it around.
Please take a more comfortable position.
If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand, and you can also ask one if you are online.
Hello, Greg. Thank you so much for your talk today. I have a friend who is struggling, and I sense the struggle resonate in myself as well, with the tension between resistance and fighting back, standing up, pushing out, and surrender. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to that tension, because it shows up in the most intimate corners of the heart and mind, as well as in so many different forms of expression, leaning into that practice of being love in the world, right? So I was wondering if you could speak to that for my friend and I. Thank you.
I recommend you read Lien's book, Home is Here. And also, this is the work we have to do, right? This is our work. I've been told, I don't know this, but somebody told me that Deshimaru Roshi, a great 20th century Zen teacher, said, I don't see any evil in the world that I don't see in here. There's nothing left out. So it's our job, our work, is to transform it here. It's not easy, but it's so necessary. And don't give up. Don't give in. Please. When you see somebody struggling, when you feel yourself struggling, you reach out. How many people have I heard them say, I have trouble asking for help? You know? Again, I think it's maybe indicative of a lot of us, I won't say all, but many people say, no, I must be self-sufficient. I do this on my own. And I actually, I'm speaking as a severely male-conditioned person, I have to be strong. I can't show weakness. People will take advantage of me if I show weakness. Yikes. Oh my gosh. I am so happy to be unlearning that. And I mean like now. Like this is my practice. Yeah. I think above all, to reach out to one another. Emphasize the net over the jewels. Emphasize what brings us together, what connects us, that heart feeling, and never give up. Microphone bow.
Greg, this is just an expression of gratitude, not a question. I wanted to clap at the end. Really, because, yeah, I felt I really appreciated your expression of the Dharma, so grounded in like real life. And I really appreciated how you modeled grieving, how you like held your grief in talking and eulogizing your friend. And I think in the context of what's been happening in the world, I feel a lot of grief, and it feels really healthy to make space for pain and to be with it. And so I appreciate how you did that. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg. This is my first day of practice. I'm nervous. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
My whole life kind of upended this year or fell apart. I was just wondering if you could speak to how you sit with groundlessness. Normally I have my community. This is my home place where I grew up. I'm here for 3 months. So now kind of the final pillar of community is a little bit removed. So just curious if you can speak to groundlessness and grief.
I mean, what are we but a bunch of atoms, mostly carbon, stardust, whirling through this space, you know. This mystery of consciousness. And then, you know, what I think, this is Curtis, actually. I'm going to quote Curtis. The value of the Zen training, we call it, training. You know? Curtis would say, where are my hands? Where are my feet? You know? This body. This body, right here, right now. You know? That's what we got. This body, this heart, this mind, for now. That's what we got. Dogen said, the fortunes of life are like a dart of lightning, emptied in an instant, vanished in a flash. So please, just practice right now with what you got. Even if you feel like it's infinitesimal, everything's been taken away, what have I got left? You know, I see you. I see you there. Alive, conscious, breathing, fellow human. Hello, fellow human. Welcome to San Francisco Zen Center. You belong here, you know? That's all I got. Hello.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. I had a question. You talked about metta quite a bit and practicing with warm-heartedness. Can you speak to how you practice that way when maybe you're feeling fear or anger or grief?
Fear, anger, grief, you name it, whole panoply of emotions, everything that, whatever arises, you know. Dogen, again, studying the Genjo Koan, here it is again. He says to study the Buddha way is to study the self. You know. Now, I have my own translation for the next line, with a little nod to Sojin Roshi. Because Dogen, well, the translation, Dogen did not speak English. The translation that we chant, it says, to study the self is to forget the self. I like to say, to study the self is to not be caught by the self. So, yeah, Zazen is very good for that too. Zazen is very, very good for that. You know, a great Zen teacher at Tassajara, Leslie James, she once said, when you sit down for a period of Zazen, it's like you're taking a mini vow, a tiny vow. I'm just going to sit here for 40 minutes and just be with whatever happens. All my thoughts and feelings, my body, whatever. Just be with it. Just to be with it over and over. And like, hey, I didn't explode. I'm still here. You know, this body is still here. And it was okay. It's okay to do that. And then more and more, you could be like, yeah, all right. And then you can be like, hey, as I often tell my dear wife, Zen teacher Reverend Linda Gallion, I'm afflicted. That's all. I'm afflicted. No? Okay. You're afflicted. Nothing lasts forever. Right? That's the good news. Impermanence is good news, in my estimation. Of course, it doesn't always feel that way. But everything changes, you know? So cultivate the ability to be with those changes and cultivate the ability to be with whatever. Linda and I were so lucky. The abbot, Mako Volkel, invited us to visit Tassajara for just a few days, just to go back and touch the ground there, to be back in that valley. It was so good. And when I said goodbye, I said, I'm always happy in Tassajara, even when I'm miserable. You know? Yeah. Yeah. That's a kind of joy that just can be with whatever's happening. That's my story. Did any of that resonate with you at all? Yes? Okay. Thank you. All right.
We have time for one last question.
Hi, Greg. Thank you for your talk. So these narratives of Indra's net, right, and not focusing on the jewels, right? I think that makes sense, right? There's something very poetic about all of the facets of all the jewels reflecting in this sort of infinite tessellation. It is indeed very cosmological, right? But focusing on the net, you know, also means focusing on what signals one is receiving from this net, or what the vibrations are, you know, between all these different jewels, right? And I think there's a tendency to portray this as something, you know, really quite lovely. We're all connected, right? But being connected also means that, so a lot of aversive reactions that can come up in that connectivity, right? So, you know, yes, I am connected to that which repulses me, right? Or that, you know, connected to something which, yeah, there is hatred of some kind. So I guess the question for me is, in that interbeing, when coming into contact with that which, you know, the conditioned response is to just completely retract and isolate, right? What does one do?
Well, the fact is, I don't know. My story is you can't, actually. However, I really do feel you. And Leanne, hi Leanne, are you still watching? In the book, she says, you know, that the net can become tattered if we're not careful. And Stevie is saying that too, right? He said, the force of evil plans to make you its possession. And it will, if we let it, destroy everybody. We all must take precautionary measures. If love and peace you treasure, then you'll hear me when I say, love's in me. We have to take care of the net. Yeah, that's important. And it can be crazy making. I know. Suzuki Roshi said, don't be in too big a hurry to be enlightened. You may not like it. Yeah. Yeah, it's our job, as I see it, to take care of the net and to be with whatever comes up. Pleasant, unpleasant, you name it. It's not easy. But I think we must do it.